everyone, welcome to Diagnosed But Not Defined. So this is our mini series. We're doing it differently because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. So we're doing these through Zoom. And I'm so happy to have Josie here with us. I've known her for a couple of years and I've seen her advocating for mental health and diabetes on social media. So I thought she would be a perfect guest for us. And I'm just going to let herself introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Josie. I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was 8 years old, so like over 10 years now. And I, just kind of recently started the journey of recognizing that I need to take care of my mental health along with my actual, physical health as well. And I'm going through that journey now, and it's been really eye-opening and amazing, and I'm excited to talk more about type 1 diabetes as well as mental health and kind of break stigmas, that go along with both things. So
yeah, we're breaking stigmas like in both areas, and I'm like really interested to learn more about diabetes because I feel like it's something that we talk about a lot, like we hear about it all the time, but nobody really understands what it is, what it's like to live with it. So if you could just like talk to us a little bit about it, like what was it like being so young and being given this diagnosis?
well, for me, I was so young, and I'm grateful that I got diagnosed at 8 years old because I still had that, childhood, like, oh, everything's great, everything's perfect, my parents handle everything. So I didn't really understand like how life-changing it was. For my parents, it affected them the most at diagnosis. So, I was 8 years old and our life changed completely. It all fell onto my parents' shoulders. It was the recession. We had so many medical bills because of this. My mom handled everything and took care of my two little sisters who were both had their own health issues. So, this diagnosis, it's earth-shattering, not only for me, but for any person I've ever spoken to. It changes everything, no matter if you get diagnosed when you're 6 years old to 45 years old. It's completely just life-changing forever.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing because I feel like I don't know if I'm gonna I if and I apologize if I come off like ignorant, but I feel like when we talk about like diabetes, like people don't take it as seriously as like somebody being diagnosed with cancer or one of those more serious illnesses because we're like, oh, diabetes, like it's just like an insulin problem, right? Like they just eat and they just like take their blood every day and they can manage it. But like just these few minutes with you, like it's an earth shattering thing. And I
Yeah.
think it's awesome that you're here telling us about it. So as you got older, when did you begin to like take more responsibility over your illness and learn more about it?
So, because I grew up in a Christian family and I went to a small private Christian school, I had to kind of take that role on as taking care of myself earlier on than most other diabetics would, because I went to schools that didn't have like, as many resources as I could have had in different schools, which, is perfectly fine. I just had to learn more and kind of grow up a little faster to be able to take care of myself because I couldn't go to a school nurse and get shots, done for me. I had to do it all myself. So I learned quickly, and it was, second nature because I was diagnosed so young that I didn't have to like take in the shock of my everything changing day to day. Just, my parents kind of made that transition easy for me. But as I got older, dealing with, hormones and everything in school and just taking tests and trying to figure out, what I want to do with my life, that on top of diabetes, that kind of all fell onto me, and it was like a lot to handle. And that was probably like when I turned 12, 13, it really all kind of hit me like, I have to do this kind of on my own. I always had my parents' support, but day to day I have to do it myself. So
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility for a 12 or 13-year-old. I teach 12 or 13-year-olds and like I, I could not imagine one of them having to deal with that. So, I commend you. It takes a lot for such a young age, especially that's like when you're really discovering what you want to do, who you want to be. So to have that put on top of you is a lot.
yeah.
Um, so when did it really when did you realize that the diabetes diagnosis and your mental health begin to correlate?
um Honestly, within the last like 2 years, I really kind of saw that like, oh, these are connected. I can like, see how one affects the other in my everyday life. And it wasn't until I really understood that like I was struggling mentally, and then I talked to somebody and I talked to a therapist, and then I kind of connected the dots on my own after not getting the answers I needed from therapy. I was like, oh, it's my diabetes that's like really, causing the issues with me. And I couldn't really find anybody to talk to about it, because there's not many therapists who specialize in diabetes and chronic illnesses, and things like that. So I had to find a lot of the answers on my own. And then I found people through the diabetic online community through Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And that's when I was like, oh, other people are struggling with mental health problems and diabetes at the same time. And they say it's, it connects. And I totally understand that. And that's kind of, so within the last 2 years, I kind of found that community and started, finding answers and resources that I needed.
That's awesome that you found that through social media.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot about like social media is so negative, like which it can be draining, but it can also like connect you with other people that are going through the exact same thing, especially like diabetes and mental health. Like there's a community out there for everybody. So if you're listening, you can find that community. So initially you went to therapy and you didn't think it was related to diabetes?
No, I mean, I knew I had like, I was just struggling with everything in general. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what my next steps were. And then I was also struggling with realizing that I have a disease that I'm going to have forever. I can't get rid of it. It affects everything I do emotionally, physically, mentally. I can't even drive without checking my blood sugar, making sure I'm okay. If my blood sugar's low, I got to wait 20 minutes before I can leave the house. Like, it's just so many things to take in, and I never get a break 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of my life. There's no cure. There's no medicine that can, help really, except for insulin, and that, has its own issues. And yeah, I went to a therapist because I was just overwhelmed with life in general. And I was like trying to explain to her that I was so just overwhelmed by this disease and everything. And I felt like I'm never going to get a break ever. And I didn't want to deal with it for the rest of my life, feeling like how I was feeling. And, she was like, well, I think it could be, related to diabetes, but I'm not educated on diabetes. So it was kind of me explaining to her, what diabetes was, the ins and outs of what I'm dealing with. And she helped me. She was amazing, but it just wasn't everything I needed.
Yes.
And then I just was on Twitter, Instagram, and I, connected with one person, and she was posting about type 1 diabetes and mental health and tagging different people. And I just kind of started meeting people through there. And then this whole online community of diabetics, came out on Twitter, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole group of people just like me who feel the same way, who deal with the same things. And it's been so amazing finding people like that, and just connecting with them and sharing our stories and advocating together and helping people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I like that you mentioned like this is why it's important that like if you go to one therapist, it's important that you know what their specialty is, because you went into their office and you were like educating her on your needs. And she was great, you said, right? But it's not the same as going to somebody that's already educated and they understand you, and you don't have to like tell them, hey, this is what I'm going through. And then they're like, oh, well, this is probably why you're feeling that way. So I'm glad that you found the social media. I'm glad you found that community. So if you could tell somebody out there, that's dealing, I'm going to say that's dealing specifically with what you're dealing with, because I think it's such, if somebody's hearing this and they're like, hey, I've never heard this from somebody else. I've never heard about somebody dealing with diabetes and mental health issues. What would you say to them that would, make them feel better, give them some support?
That you're going to feel overwhelmed many, many days with type 1 diabetes. You're going to feel like you're never going to get a break, and that, you have to deal with this forever. But it does get easier. Days get better. You're going to have bad and good days, but you just have to keep fighting. Everyone tells diabetics that, you're a warrior. You can do this. Don't let diabetes define you. Don't let it stop you. there's going to be days it stops you. There's going to be days that it takes you out and you have to stay in bed and just cry, and that's okay. And that's kind of something I learned through everything is you have to sometimes you have to let diabetes just kind of let you slow down and take a break and kind of like stop and be like, okay, I need to deal with my health first. I need to get myself together. You can't let it completely take over you, but it's always going to be there. Diabetes is a part of me. It's who I am. And I don't let it define me. That's like what everybody always says, don't let it define you. But it's a big part of me, and it's helped me meet people and connect with people and learn new things. So I think telling diabetics that are struggling, to try and see your diabetes as something that can help you, something you can use as a tool to meet people and make your life better. And you can help make other people's lives better through that. That's the one thing that you should try and do and try and think about.
I love that. And that's basically like what this whole interview is about, right? It's like not letting your diagnosis define you. I love that. Um, so when it came to like your mental health, were you ever diagnosed with anything?
I'm not. I do have body dysmorphia. I have a lot of body image issues. I've struggled a lot with, using food as a coping mechanism and like binge eating, things like that. I do, you know, my diabetes affects my emotional state, and some days, my moods are up here, and then other days my moods are down there. And it's not really like a diagnosis that I've gotten from a therapist because they don't really, know the correlation as much between type 1 diabetes and mental health, like diseases and stuff like that. But I do know from research and stuff on my own, there is a connection because people with chronic illnesses, they don't get a break. It's every single day, it's 24/7. They don't have a lot of people that understand what they're going through, especially in society, not depicting diabetes in the best way and not, educating people. So you have a stigma around your disease, and that kind of just adds to everything because you have people making comments about your body and you're fat, and that's why you got diabetes. Oh, you must have grown up eating fast food every day, so that affected me a lot with my body image issues and, my eating and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how did you like find peace with that? Because you seem like just through this conversation, you seem like you've kind of like not grew into diabetes, but you feel like more comfortable talking about it. You're like advocating for it. So how did you like come to this place?
My parents growing up, like, they always wanted me to talk about it. I always did presentations for my class to try and educate people and things like that. And then as I got older, I kind of realized, that's something that I love to do, and I want to keep doing it, and I want to keep educating people because I've dealt with so many people that weren't educated, and just making hurtful comments and just not understanding what I'm going through, whether it's, growing up in school with people bullying you, or even in the workplace, not knowing your rights and not being able to stand up for yourself, because some days you need a break, you have a disease, but people look at you like, oh, it's just diabetes, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
not. It's a disease that I have forever, and one of my entire organs doesn't work. Like, sometimes you need a break, so you have to, I had to advocate for myself and learn how to do all that.
Exactly. It's like we were saying, like diabetes, we don't think of it as like as earth-shattering as cancer or as earth-shattering as I don't know, like one of those more serious. I'm not even saying more serious disease, but
No,
as
no, I understand.
predicted. Yeah, but it is serious. Like you said, an entire organ is not functioning well.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine. Like I can't even imagine what that must be like on a daily basis. Um, how do you give yourself that break? Because you do live with this every single day. So how do you like practice self-care when you're having one of those tough days? What do you do?
For me, when you have diabetes and you're having a tough day, like you said, you don't get a break. It's a constant. I'm always managing my blood sugars, making sure I'm trying to stay in range. Everything I do affects my blood sugars, whether it's something I'm eating, the weather outside, stress, like literally everything can make your blood sugar fluctuate. And those fluctuations affect everything. So from your like getting a headache to being sick all day to not being able to get out of bed, like it depends on every single person what the side effects are of what your blood sugar is. But for me, it's just kind of taking a step back from people, because I'm a people person. I want to always be around people and host people and like always out doing things. And sometimes for me, self-care and taking care of myself is being like, okay, Josie, you need like to stay in bed, you need to stay home, you need to really focus on tracking your food and writing down your carb counts and all of that, because I have to do that to make sure my blood sugar is good. So sometimes it's just slowing down and really trying to focus on me. And if it's just laying in bed all day, that's what I'm gonna do.
I love that. And like that's something that, whether you have like diabetes or not, is something that we should all take into
Yeah.
consideration. And I think it's hard to do in a society that's like hustle culture, like grind, like you can do it, push through, like, and it's sometimes it's like, hey, like today I'm not going to do anything and that's okay. Like today I need to take care of me. And like you said, lay in bed. I need to, just monitor my own feelings. So do your emotions play into like your like your glucose level, your blood sugar?
Yes. So I mean, I can give you like a quick definition so you know all the terms
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everything, and like kind of give you a rundown. So, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where your beta cells made by your pancreas are destroyed by your own body for no reason. Doctors, scientists don't really have a clear reason. It could be genetic, it could be environmental factors. People think it could be vaccines. Nobody knows for sure. But when that happens, your pancreas, which everybody has a pancreas, everybody needs insulin to survive. Without insulin, within a couple days, weeks, if you're lucky, you know, it could be fatal.
Mhm.
But insulin is a protein that's secreted by your pancreas. And when you eat food, no matter what you're eating, it turns to glucose, sugar in your blood. And your pancreas secretes insulin to turn that glucose in your blood into energy to use. So when your body doesn't make insulin like mine, you just have glucose, sugar sitting in your blood. And when that happens, your body goes into something called ketoacidosis or DKA. And that's basically the glucose in your blood rising in your body because it can't metabolize that into energy because you have no insulin. Your body is just metabolizing itself. So just kind of slowly like, yeah, metabolizing itself. And that's how you go into DKA. And again, if you don't catch it soon enough, it can be fatal. You can have severe complications. Most of the time, doctors can catch it early enough with doing finger sticks and being educated. But so that's kind of the rundown on how diabetes works. So anybody can get it. It doesn't discriminate on age. A lot of people think, oh, it's like type 1 is like kids' diabetes, but it's not. Like a lot of adults get diagnosed later on in life. Kids in their teens, but then also little kids get it all the time. So that's kind of the rundown of type 1 diabetes. And yeah, everything you do affects that: emotions, weather, if it's too hot or too cold, my blood sugar could be, up and down.
Wow.
If I'm dealing with a stressful, like if I'm in a fight with somebody or if I'm upset about something, my blood sugar will reflect that and I'll feel that, I could get sick, I could have a headache, I could have severe joint pain. Your diabetes affects your nervous system. So there's a lot of complications that come along with it. If you've had diabetes like me for, over 10 years and your blood sugar is fluctuating up and down because there's no way to really keep it completely stable, you can have a lot of complications from that. And that's worst case scenario, but it happens to a lot of people. And it affects, yeah, everything you do. I know many people that have nerve damage, arthritis, they have loss of vision, they have loss of limbs, and they're my age, they're young, they have kidney failure. So, and people don't realize that those are the complications. That's what people have to deal with, in their 20s and their 30s, all from just having just diabetes, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we think about those complications for like those that are older and diagnosed with diabetes, but yeah, those are things that I just learned right now can happen to, those that are diagnosed at a young age. And I can completely see the correlation that would have with mental health. Where if I'm just having a stressful day and it could just be something with work, I'm already like upset, I'm down, like I don't want to do anything. So I can only imagine what it could feel like when you have a chronic illness and you're dealing with it every day, and there's severe complications if things don't go right. So how do you how has like social media helped you through it? How has your finding your community, how has that like brought a positive light to this?
It has helped me so much because, my parents they didn't want my diabetes, my disease to define me. There's like all types of diabetic camps and all types of groups you can be a part of. But my parents were kind of like, you know, we don't want it to define you. We don't want to be like these crazy people that are, all about diabetes. And not that people are crazy that are like, super about diabetes, but they just wanted me to kind of live my normal childhood life, and just kind of have diabetes off to the side. And I thank them for that because I was able to kind of like live my life and grow up and do things as normal as I could. But again, I grew up kind of alone, and I didn't really have like friends that understood me because nobody really knows what you're going through, when you have diabetes. And I had like one girl in my school growing up who was diabetic, but I didn't really know her. So I like had nobody. And I didn't discover the diabetic community until, like I said, like 2 years ago maybe. And once I started connecting with people and talking with people, like it was just so amazing finding other people who understand and can
Like your
get what
tribe.
you're saying. Yeah, like really and truly is. Like we're the diabetic online community, the DOC, like we all like rep it and we all support each other and it's amazing. And through that community I've found like a whole network of people that do mutual aid work. And the insulin crisis that's going on right now in America and all over the world is really, really bad. Diabetics are dying every single day because they can't afford their medication. They're rationing insulin or choosing to pay rent or pay bills over buying their insulin, which is already thousands of dollars a month out of pocket with insurance. So if you don't even have insurance, it's, even worse. And through Twitter and Instagram, I found, the mutual aid kind of network of people that can connect people together that need supplies. And we can give people insulin if they need it or give people supplies or pay for their bills or whatever they need. And that's been amazing too. If I ever need it, if I'm ever without insulin, I know that I have like a community of people to support me, when my doctors can't help me, when the hospital can't help me. So that's a whole nother thing that diabetics have to deal with. And that plays into mental health too, with a lot of people, a lot of my friends that I know online, they're struggling every single day because it's, can I feed my kids? Can I pay my college, bills? Can I pay my car payments, or can I get insulin? And without insulin, you're not gonna make it. So it's like that was eye opening and also earth shattering to realize that that's going on in my community. And like I'm blessed to have good insurance right now. But when I'm off my parents' insurance, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So it's good to know that I have a network of people that are there to help me if I need it, and I can do that for them. So that's just been the best thing about finding my tribe.
And that
Yeah.
could be, that's like a serious issue right there, because we're asking people to choose between whether you want to live or whether you want to pay your rent. And that takes a completely different toll on your mental health, because you have to think about your family, but it's like if I'm selfish, I die.
Yeah.
Like there's really no options here. So I
Yeah.
think that's and that's something that people probably don't even know, that insulin costs, like you said, thousands of dollars every month for your whole life.
Yes.
So that can bring so much stress. It could probably spiral somebody into like depression. It could really make somebody consider suicide, have suicidal ideations. So I think if they find a tribe, if they know that there are people out there for them, that there's this mutual aid, that there's help, not even just for your mental health, but for your physical health too. That's going to save lives.
Yeah.
because you know, like we always say here, like there you can't have physical health, you can't have health at all if you don't have your mental health. So I think just having that support system, be like having somebody to be like, hey, I need this, like, can you help me? Knowing that you have that there is so, so important. I think that's awesome. So for anybody listening, go out there, talk to Josie about this, you know, get connected with her. I think that's awesome. I didn't even like know any of this, so I'm getting educated here too. If is there anything else that you would like to let people know about mental health and diabetes?
Um, just that again, there's a stigma around diabetes and also around mental health, and you don't need to be afraid to ask people for help if you really need it, if you need resources, especially again, the diabetic online community. If there's a diabetic person listening to this who feels alone, who feels like they can't afford their next prescription and they need help, you can come into my DMs, you can tweet out the hashtag insulin for all, and you'll have hundreds of people coming to help you. Like, we are here for each other, we support each other as a community, and I love it, and it's amazing to see. And just, I want every diabetic to know that your disease, you know, it doesn't define you, but it's okay to let it make you take a step back and slow down. And it's important to focus on yourself and to learn how to advocate and stick up for yourself, because it's hard for diabetics to do that. We feel like we have to keep going and keep a brave face on, but sometimes it's hard to do that. And it's okay to not always, you know, pretend like everything's okay, because diabetes is hard and it's okay that it's hard.
Oh,
And
I love that. I really love that. And that like goes with the message that we always say. You know, it's okay if you're having rough days. It's okay if, you know, you feel like you can't do it. You can. We're here for you. I'm here for you. Josie's here for you. Thank you so much for being here. I honestly, I learned so much. Um, and I'm real like now I'm like I'm gonna go look up like the diabetic community. Like it sounds so supportive and awesome. And I think honestly, like we should get educated on this. Like so many people have it, and like I said, we don't even look at it as something that, you know, we're like, oh, like they'll get through it, you know what I mean? But it's actually something that affects like your daily life, and it takes a toll on your mental health. And just like Josie said, you know, we're here for you, whether you have diabetes or not. This community is for everyone. Thanks so much for being here, Josie. I really appreciate it. Do you want to plug your Instagram for people?
yes, thank you for having me. First off, I'm so glad I could share more about diabetes and my experiences. My Instagram is Josie Elizabeth, and my Twitter is underscore Josie98. That's where I connect more with the diabetics, is on Twitter. And there's also two websites I want to plug for anybody that wants, you know, more resources or education on type 1 diabetes and the insulin crisis happening right now. So the first one is mutualaiddiabetes.com. It's a new nonprofit that's starting up to give mutual aid legally to
Awesome.
diabetics that need it. Donations don't open yet until they get approved in January, but there's still educational resources on there. It's an amazing group. I'm excited to see what happens with that. And then T1international.com is another amazing resource. So there's my plugs. Thank you again for
Yeah,
having me.
awesome. Two awesome plugs. Go check them out. Let's get educated more on this topic. Thanks so much for coming, Josie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.